sense the temperature of the air outside. Yes. On what we call an outside air sensor. If that outside air sensor closes, by closing I mean is calling for cooling, then it will send a signal to the chiller that it is time to work. Now, I don't know if you guys can see that little square thing up on this slide right there. Now, right above your head. Right there. That little square box. What that is, it is a water flow sensor. It has a little pedal. It's still a mechanical device. The pump moves water, and it has a little paddle that is probably about wide. As the water pressure hits that paddle, it's pushed and it closes the switch. Very simple. Nothing electronic about that. So when the outside air sensor says that it's time to work, it will send electricity to here. If this does not sense water flow, then the electricity stops right there and nothing happens. Now, if that is closed, it will continue, the electricity will continue its travel and it will reach the chiller. Now, then a computer will sense that yes, all the safeties have met. Everything is the way it should be. So the chiller will start. And it starts with a little and that is that little motor that I was telling you, you guys will be able to hear it. And it will start irrigating oil into the compressors. Once that oil sensor senses that there is oil in there, you'll hear the humming of the compressor and it will start. So that is, once that chiller starts and it senses that the temperature of the water in the condenser barrel is getting hot, it will start the pumps. Those are the two pumps that are way out there in the corner. That is for the condenser water. Now, in there, you'll see different constructions in there on the wall. That's where these gentlemen will come in. They are the experts in water treatment. Okay? Now, because the water evaporates, now remember that in order to heat exchange, water will get hotter. The water gets hotter, eventually evaporates. Now, when water evaporates, or boils for that matter, that's what happened. I don't know if you guys own tea kettles. You see how it has white stuff inside the tea kettles? That's because the water is evaporating, all the minerals stay behind. Okay, so all that stuff hardens in there. Now, there is a point in which if nothing is done, that water gets so saturated with, it's called dissolved solids, that they begin to settle down on the bottom like mud. This is something that you guys can test at home. Hot water. If you get water and start putting sugar in it, put a spoon of sugar, stir it, sugars disappear. Yeah. Put another spoon, stir it, sugar disappear. Eventually, you can put as much sugar as you want. The sugar will get wet, but it will go down on the bottom. It will no longer disappear. It can no longer dissolve. Why? Because the water is so saturated already that it will no longer dissolve the sugar. Now, that has to be addressed. So, what these gentlemen do, they set up those systems, and in fact, they're setting up a couple of systems right now for other areas. Is that water is beginning to drain out of the system, and chemicals are put into the system to balance the pH. So that's what it is. I don't know crap about it. I should know how it works and how exactly. So, but that's what you guys will see. Now, if you guys want to see it before we actually, oh, by the way, right in here, there is another set of controls that has to do also with setting that unit. You know that this is for the boilers. Now, remember the good old timers, mechanical? They're no longer there. Now, even the timers are electronics, the VCR. Now, this here, if you notice, a VFD. Remember that I was talking about something sensing the temperature of the condensed water, and that sends a signal to the variable frequency drive. Now, that variable frequency drive, you will see it in the next room. It's not in here. But what this does is we tell them, okay, we want the water temperature an X amount. So we said, okay, X amount, below that is 0, above that it's a little bit. Now, the sensor, you guys can see it, and it is, if you see that pipe with an arrow going up, yeah. If you see like a foot on the upper pipe, you'll see a little sensor in there with a wire. That sensor on the wire comes all the way down to here, okay? And it is hooked up to here. So that is what a transducer is, a thermistor, pardon me. The transducer is for pressure. The thermistor will convert a temperature into an electrical impulse. Now, that is sending an impulse, and the way it really works is this little thing sends, let's say, 10 volts or 24 volts of electricity to that sensor. And it is fairly simple. It has a resistor in it. And depending on how much resistance there is, that's how much electricity is going to come back to here. And it is set, if you notice, from 2 to 10 volts. Okay, 2 volts of electricity at DC means that it is almost at temperature. So this will send an impulse again to the variable frequency drive. Okay, now they're talking electronically. Okay, they are telling, this is telling the variable frequency drive, hey, it is almost time to start working, and it starts very slowly. So that's what this does. These are just regular sensors, okay? This, and this are all needed. What this does, it creates it's a transformer, okay? It just creates electricity. This is the display. If I press here, it tells me where the setting is. See, they have it set at 88. Okay, now if I move this, see how it changes? Yeah. All it is doing, these 3 things does one function. It works with the thermistor. Okay. So this is for the condenser water, and that's for the chill water. Yes.
It's showing 60 right there now. Is that the temperature of the water?
That is
right
the
now?
water temperature, yes.
Good question. You're saying that it turns it into like a DC motor that you can slow it down? Slow down the motors?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. You probably know that, like in the States, we work with 60 hertz. If you reduce the amount of hertz, you reduce the speed.
Right.
Okay? So that's the way that the variable frequency drives. This all it does, it just sends an electronic signal to that thing to tell them how to operate. Yes. So very simple. If you guys, let's go through that door. I'll show you guys the cooling tower.
Can we see why the refrigerant